Hey, welcome back to another episode of Debating 404's podcast. You're watching Debaters Chronicles, where we look at the journey of debaters, adjudicators, and coaches who have made a difference not just in the context of debate. I'm Azhar, and today we have Pragyan Acharya with us. Hi, Pragyan.
Hi, Azhar. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
When did you first get into debate? It's usually like a memorable moment for most of us. It's like the moment that we fell in love with debating or that we first got a taste of what debating was like. What was that moment for you?
So I first started debating in 2017, and the reason I started debating was like there were some kids that had joined my high school, and apparently they knew about this organization named Debate Network Nepal. So they told me about this national high school tournament that is held in the World Schools Debating Championship format, which was also the selections for Team Nepal. So they told me about this tournament, and they said that they'd want me to participate with them. So then I participated in that tournament. So that's how I got into the sport.
For me, I got in because like my English teacher just told me to go for it, and I auditioned and somehow got into it. Luckily, and I didn't like it from the very beginning. Was it like that for you? Was it like love at first sight or something, a passion that you developed over time?
No, honestly, I actually liked it the first time that I went. So what happened for me was I didn't know about debating until then, and I think that also speaks to the fact that debating is not as widespread in Nepal. So only very few people know about it. So I got to know about it, and then I went to this tournament. What I've got from the first tournament is I got a community. I got a lot of people that I could speak to, a lot of very fun and interesting people. So I just liked the vibe. I didn't think we did very well in that tournament, but I just enjoyed it. So I just kept going back.
I mean, nobody does so well at the first try, right? That raises a good question. That is, how do you develop and improve as a debater? And I think at some point before the pandemic, that was $1 million question that everyone wanted to know the answer to. Right now, it's not that big of an issue because you have, online resources and there are organizations like, for example, us at Debating 404, we provide a digital library of case files and workshops and all that kind of stuff. So, what were the resources that you use?
I think this is a wonderful question, and I think the initiative that you guys are taking is incredibly wonderful. I think that does a lot for a lot of people that are starting debating. So congratulations on that. When I started, and I agree, like I think the pandemic fixed the problem because you could do these tournaments, you could spar with a lot of people, you could just speak with them. Became a lot more
Yeah.
easier. But before the pandemic, like there were a few very specific things that I struggled with, probably because of where I'm from. So the first thing that I struggled with was like speaking in English, like very properly and very fluently without having those filler words. So
Uh-huh.
that took a lot of time to like change. And so that was one thing that I had to work on extensively. So what I did for that was I used to speak to a mirror. So that's how I used to practice speeches. And I
Oh,
also would
wow.
sometimes try to record myself, but I just don't like the sound of my voice. So I just tried to like give a speech to a mirror. And what I also did was I watched a lot of English like shows and like lectures, like, these videos, which would also give me content for debate. So like, videos from Vox is where I started from. But later on, more and more videos about geopolitics and so on. So you get the information too, but they're speaking in English and they're presenting that information to you. So like you also get that presentation style from them. So that was what I did for English. That was, I think, the one big thing that I struggled with articulating myself, which I still do. And I think the second thing that I did was I kept a lot of resources. Like everyone around me, at least in Nepal, like the very few of us that debate, they know me for like someone who brings a lot of matter files when I go to debate. So I just used to have a lot of information. I used to make notes and I would just print them out because I feel like if you read them time and time again, then you're more likely to remember it as opposed to just read it once.
Those were some pretty cool tips. And to be fair, for the record, nobody likes the sound of their own voices. Like, I don't know if it's just me. I'm like, now that you said it, I'm pretty sure everyone faces the same issue. What is your single most important advice that you would give to your past self when you were just starting out debating?
Because another thing that helped me improve, and I started this like recently too, but before you started watching debates, and that really helped me improve as well. I think that was one advice I'd give to my younger self: just start watching debates. I think the
Uh-huh.
second thing that I would do was I would try to think more about the competitive side of it because I think when I started out in grade 11, like I was, I think, a bit more competitive, and I think that got in the way of me developing or like speaking to people or at
Yeah.
least getting the most of the moment. So that's another thing that I would probably advise my younger self on.
Now let's move on to your first coaching job. What was it like? What does it feel like to be a coach?
I did like small gigs for Debate Network Nepal, like one-off events. I wouldn't say that those were like coaching jobs per se, but there was this one school that I was assigned to, for which I went for like 7-8 sessions. So that is something would be my first coaching gig. So it was in a school in Kathmandu, but it was not a private school, so a public school, and it was not for money, it was just for free. And I really enjoyed that experience there. It was memorable because, you know, the students there, they don't know about debating, but they're also not as privileged as I am, and they also don't have access to similar resources like me. So the way I tried to approach their classes was I tried to connect it with their like grade 8 social studies curriculum, so that they could like try to make more sense of what I'm speaking. Or even when I'm like teaching them the format, I try to bring them in front. And sometimes they would hesitate. It was not an environment that I was used to, especially because of the school that I went to, etc. So that experience was memorable because I feel like I didn't just, you know, have a good time teaching them, but I also felt that I got something out of the experience, because I would see them like, understand something and like see them in the eye, the spark that they've understood something when they say it again next time, or when they make that same argument a few days later. Like those are very fulfilling times. So yeah, that's something that I remember. And that school is like very pass by, so I see those students sometimes and they wave at me. So yeah, that's a constant reminder too.
I mean, it's no wonder that they say that a teacher's job is like very meaningful and fulfilling. Even if it's not like, you know, the highest paying job in the world, it's still something that is enjoyable. So what do you think are the most important skills that coaches need to work on? I
think one thing is to listen, because I think like as a coach, oftentimes you just want to teach. So like we have a very like, you know, this is just generally our understanding of teaching is like, you are the person that's imparting the knowledge. I think if you like, coaches tend to listen more to what their students are saying, or what they think about debating, or what they think about a certain argument or a certain motion, how they would approach it, like just intuitively, then I think you can like build on the knowledge that the kid already has. And I think they're more likely to understand it because it's like built around what they thought of. So we're just trying to modify that. So I think that's one thing that I would, that's something that's important. And I realized later on.
You talked about how you connected their social science subject with debating, right? So are there other proven methods that you've used before as a coach, and they have worked as well?
I try to emphasize a few things. One is obviously trying to get them to speak during my session. So I just try to keep it very open and not very formal. So I will let them interrupt me if they want to interrupt me, as long as they're not interrupting someone else. I think if they're giving them the freedom to speak, whatever is on their mind and the first thought that comes to their mind, usually that's the thing that we run as an argument in a debate as well. So like if we just build on what they're already saying, then they're better able to, you know, understand it. They're better able to retain it as well. So I think that is one thing that I would do. So that's what putting them on the spot, but also asking them a lot of questions. So if they make a certain claim, for example, smoking is bad because it causes harm to people, then why should you care? Why should the government care? Is there no other option? So just like keeping on asking them questions that you will ask yourself when you're making an argument, just so that they can walk down the process themselves, as opposed to telling them the argument. So I think this is something that has worked for me, I guess, because I think they enjoy it and I enjoy it too.
Let's move on to your first tournament, which you organized and you were a convener of. Tell us a little bit about that tournament that you organized, and also what exactly goes into tournament organization.
I think the first tournament I organized was a physical tournament, and that was when I was back in high school. And that was in, I think, 2018 July. I was in 12th standard then. So it was a physical tournament in Nepal, so I'm unsure how much these insights will be valuable for everyone who might be listening. But one thing that we did was, because we're doing it from a school, as a school student, what we did was we tried to reach out to other schools through our school. So as opposed to reaching out to students, asking our school administration to reach out to their school administration, so that it becomes more formal, so they send more teams. Second was, because it was being organized in Nepal, we tried to look for as much sponsorship as possible, because we can't put the registration fee very high, but we also need to pay international judges and so on. So that was the other thing. And the third thing was, I think we sort of got lucky, because we wanted to organize a tournament on a national scale, but what happened on the same time was, like, IUB in Bangladesh, like, they used to always organize this tournament called IUB Ascension. I don't know if you've heard about it. Like, and they do this very big tournament, which is free for everyone. They bring everyone in, and then they put them in, like, give them accommodations for free. So I think it was organized 2018, 2019. And I think before they organized their first edition, the people from that university, they for some reason contacted us, and they sort of helped us in the process. So it was like our tournament held in Nepal, which was physical, but we also had some people from IUB come in. They had some session from their end. So we had some help from them, some insight. And I think the fourth thing was for us in Nepal, everything is centralized and DNN is like the regional debating body. So it's the national debating body. So we went to DNN and DNN gave us the resources of how to organize tournaments. So I think that was how I organized the tournament as a school student. But we had a lot of teams. We had like 40 teams. I think it was the biggest high school tournament until then. It is largely because we reached out to schools through schools. So like schools would just send tons of students who wouldn't have debated before. So a lot of people joined the debating circuit too with that tournament. So yeah.
That just again reminds us of the fact that the debating industry is such like big and happy family. If you know what I mean, like there's like debaters and judges and coaches and also people who organize tournaments, and everyone has their own special function. And like you've been through all those different stages, like you've done all of it. And talking about judging, tell us about the first time you judged a debate.
Like actually, my judging story is actually kind of sad because the reason I started judging was because I didn't have a teammate to team up with. And this happened because I joined in my university, we didn't have a lot of active debaters, and it was all online when I started out in 2020. And this is when I started judging actually. Like I used to judge in Nepal a few times because there wasn't a lot of debaters, but generally I was not one for judging. Like I was not like, oh yes, let's judge the tournament. So that was why I got into judging, because I didn't have a teammate. So there was nothing else I could do. And honestly, I didn't like it at first. Like even if when I talk to friends, I would tell them I just hate the fact that I have to judge. But there was no other way to get to majors. So I was like, okay, why not? So then I started judging. After that, I think it has been good because I think judging also gives you its own perspectives and it gives you your own skills. I think, I'd read somewhere like one of these debater had said something about like, judging helps you manage panels and it helps you manage panel discussions and so on. Like that's very true if you're a chair in a big panel. So, and it helps you see the debate, how people persuade, like take notes. Like one thing that happened for me, is, especially after debating went online, was I used to judge and, debaters speak very, very fast. So when I take notes, I wasn't very fast at typing. I always had to look at my keyboard, but now I don't. And I'm so fast at typing. I just love that.
I mean, if you've seen one of those fast debaters, maybe you'll have seen me as well, because like that's a problem that I think many of us face. Like we speak very, very fast because we have like so much stuff to say.
Yeah, exactly.
I've read a post that was written by you, and I think you showed a comparison between competitive debating and competitive judging. So which one do you choose between the two and why?
Now, I think people would think that I would say competitive judging, and maybe yes, because like I was able to do well judging and like I enjoy it too, but also the fact that I would have otherwise debated. And I think this is like, if you're starting out, I think you'd want to debate, because I think competitive judging is competitive, but the thrill isn't there. With competitive debating, you have the thrill too. So I think it's a bit more fun. It helps you think on your feet. So I think it's better in that regard. Like competitive judging is great as well, but I think competitive debating is just, it teaches you stuff too, but you have a lot of fun in the process.
So when do you know when to focus on debating and when to focus on judging? Like, is there like, is it like until university you're a debater and then after that you just completely switch to judging?
So what happened for me was I was debating till like mid 2020, because even if I was in university, like there was a lot of online tournaments at that time, and I had like a few friends in Nepal who I could team up with. I did Doxbridge and all of these things. But then in the middle, like I didn't have a teammate, and it was like there's no point to team up with someone else because I wasn't being able to go to majors. So then I switched to judging. But the way I think of it right now is I would debate if I have a teammate who is also committed to debating and is also interested in competitive debating, then I would debate with that person. But if that person is not there, then I would focus on judging. But right now, my inclination is more towards like working to teach debating or working to like create some curriculum that some organization could use when they're teaching debating. So that's where I'm more inclined towards.
Usually, all professionals working in a particular industry, they have been victims of like, they have to hear a lot of people talk about stereotypes about their industry. And I'm pretty sure the debating industry also has a few stereotypes and, prejudices and stuff like that. So what do you think is a myth about the debating industry that you want to end?
This is partly myth and partly not a myth. I think like people think that people who debate, they're insulated from things that are going around them, so they're relatively privileged. And second is people think that the debaters generally don't want to listen and they want to speak more, which I think is true for obvious reasons. And I think we have a lot of instances where it has been true. But I think it is also to some point a myth, because especially in a circle where you have friends of your same age, so it's not like, if someone who is from your same social class or from your own background who doesn't debate, if that person levies that comment against you, then maybe it is not as true as if it was levied by someone else who might actually be a victim of our not listening.
Now let's talk about the deep stuff, right? What does debating mean to you on a deeper level?
I think right now, if I am to think of where I am, especially after like my A levels and then I went to college, and if I'm thinking about my journey, then I feel like if I hadn't gone into debating, then life would have been very, very different from what it is right now in a lot of different ways. Because even if I studied humanities, for example, I was not very sure if I wanted to get into international relations and education at that point. Maybe I would have gone into something else. But the way I started speaking, the things that I was investing time on, and simultaneously the things that it gave me as well, like I started coaching from a very young age. I was also able to do very well academically, because interestingly, something that debating does for you is it makes your writing better, at least better than what it was before. And I this very later, but you get that structure, you get the organization, so all your essays and everything, they become better, and you also have content to write, and you're forming ideas, you're forming your thesis. So these are things that it helped me in, and it somehow enabled a lot of different things. So it helped me in being slightly better academically. That opened up other opportunities that I could explore as well. So I think that's probably what debating would mean for me on a deeper level, especially with coaching as well, like going to these students, talking to them. It gives you a whole different identity, right? Because the way they know you, in that space, the way they engage with you is very different, and would obviously be very different.
I can totally relate to what you said. Debating helps us to structure our writing and improve it a lot better, and also because you get a lot of ideas for what to write as well. And I have done that for my social science exam. Don't tell my mom. But don't do that in real life. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. But definitely, watching some of the debates when you're late on a deadline, that might just help you with an assignment. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, now let's talk about a topic that you're very, very passionate about, and that's about education, and more specifically, politics and promotion of education in disadvantaged areas, especially post-conflict zones. And that's so specific and so niche. I'm very curious to know why.
If I would put it succinctly, then I would say I'm interested in the politics of education in post-conflict societies, or education in conflict-ridden zones. And I think I was interested in it. My interest got cultivated through some experiences as well. But my interest actually stems from a very personal experience, because in Nepal we had a civil war that ended in 2006, and schools was a very big site that was devastated during the civil wars. Schools were a site of attack, but just generally school education changed after those years as well. And even when we would go to school, in the post-revolution years until 2014, we used to have constant strikes and bunds. So you would have closures for days, and you'd have education closures. So schools wouldn't be allowed to open. This problem is actually acute in universities as well, where you have youth political parties going in and closing universities. But so this is generally from where that interest stems from. It's not like when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is so sad, my education is being disrupted. I used to like it because I didn't have to go to school. But now when I think of it retrospectively, then it's something that is, when I think of it, it probably affects the way we think about democracy, or with the way we think about our country or education, has been really impacted by that experience. And we don't know the impact, but there certainly is an impact. This explains my interest in education in post-conflict societies. I'm particularly interested in schooling, and this part of also derives from debating, because debating went to a lot of schools, saw a lot of schools, especially within the valley. Different schools have different resources and different circumstances, even if the students are in the same standard. So the educational outcome is also different across these schools. And you see it yourself and you experience it when you're going there to teach debating. So I think that also partly influenced my interest in schools. And generally in Nepal, I think it's in most countries, but study so that your life will become great. Or education is this very valorized institution.
I think there's an activist in most of us, either because like you, we have some sort of an emotional attachment to this cause, or we just feel that there's like, the sense of urgency. So what was your first step into education related initiatives and taking action?
My first initiative would then probably be debating itself and going to these schools through debating, because I think that gave me the experience, but I think I was also being a part of something. And then when I went to Doha, I interned at Education Above All Foundation. So the foundation has 4 different organizations within it, so 4 different directorates, and one of their program or directorate is the Protect Education and Insecurity and Attack program. And I am interning there currently as well, and I'm still working with them. So this is something that I'm finding fulfilling, because what I get at their offices is I get access to a lot of resources, because they do a lot of research, they do a lot of handbooks. So I get those resources. I get expertise as well. It's a very small office. I get to speak to them. So I harbor my interest and I get more knowledge in the process. And also simultaneously, I help them with the programs that they're doing and their partnered initiatives. So I feel that I'm contributing as well. But right now, where I'm at, honestly, I feel that more of my work is into understanding the multiple ways in which education and conflict is related, how education and post-conflict reconstruction can be related, as opposed to actually going in and doing these stuff, if that makes sense. I'm trying to look more into what's going on actually, more academically.
Like, just to connect this debating aspect with education, why do you think we should inculcate debating and dialogue more into our classrooms and curriculums? Of course, we all know it's important, but what more specifically do you think are the benefits?
Some organizations are, I think, doing a great thing about this, and I see this a lot online as well. I think some people write about it as well. I think I just forgot the name, so I won't try. But I know some people that use debate methodology. I follow them on Facebook, and I see how they're doing it. Like, I follow this person named Miha Andrich, and I don't think he knows me, but I know him. So I just read his post, and it's very interesting, because I think it's the way he teaches his classes. He tries to demonstrate in Facebook how he uses debate methodology, or how he borrows the way think in debating when he teaches in classes. So these are, I think, examples. And another thing is, I think, because again, of my personal experience, so in A-levels, like there's this subject called like general paper. I don't know if you did A-levels, but like, this is like just write an essay. And because of debating, I was able to write an essay, and it turned out very, very good. And later I thought about this class, and this class is basically, you have an exam where you're given like 10 questions, choose one, write an essay, and finished. So for a class such as this, for which questions are open-ended, there's going to be 10 questions, which is open-ended, and you're writing an answer. If you think about it, it's actually a debate, right? And you're writing a case file, because it's like 10 motions. You're going to a tournament, you reach the finals, and you choose one and you write a paper on it. So that's what, and then I started retrospectively thinking about it. And then I went online and I saw that there is a paper titled how general paper teaching can be done through debate methodology or something. So like, it's like, the meme, like whatever you think of, there's someone who's already done it. But I looked into that too. So that's what I found interesting. So I think debate methodology can really be integrated within the way we teach within the classroom in a very pedagogical way. So, the way teachers would ask us to think about things or articulate things, I think that could change a lot. The way we teach also changes a lot, because then you're again engaging as opposed to just a one-sided exchange of information. I think it would help reform the way people teach as well, because I think it changes the dynamic.
What was your biggest failure, like in your entire debating journey, as a debater or as a coach?
I think because I was speaking about debating, I think I just keep going back to debating. So I'll just share one experience with debating. I wouldn't say failure, but I feel a bit disappointed that we weren't able to do this. This was 2019 World Schools Debating Championship. I went for Nepal, so I was debating, but we missed the breaks. And the year before that, we missed the breaks. So at WSDC, at 5, you're guaranteed a break. At 4, you're not going to break. So last time we missed out on 4, and we missed out on 1 ballot in 2018 in 1 or 2 ballots. In 2019 was the same case again. So that is one instance that I'm disappointed with, because that time, the team that we had, I know that we had, like, at that point, we didn't have a lot of coaches and we didn't have people that were teaching us debating. So we had to do things on our own. But I still feel that if we had, maybe if we had resources, maybe if we had tried a bit harder, we could have break. Like, we got quite unlucky during that tournament. So that's, one thing that I'd say. But since 2020, 2021, Nepal is still missing the break on that 1 ballot.
I mean, what did you learn from that? Like, what is the lesson that you learned from it?
I think there was a few lessons. I think the first was about this coaching itself, and that's why I started getting into working with Team Nepal myself. But right now, I'm very happy. Like I share this sometimes as well. We because of Mr. Lok, we were able to access funding for the development of Team Nepal, and that was huge for us. I think Mr. Lok has helped us a lot, but that was huge because it gave us resources that we didn't have previously. So what we were able to do now was we were able to hire a coach who would also work with the team full time. So it wouldn't just be me just volunteering, but it would be somewhat substantial. So we spoke to Sauradip Paul. So he's helping us with the team right now. He's a great guy, and we're working with the team, and this makes me very happy. So I think that's one thing that I learned then. Having that resource would help us because WSDC, especially, if anyone is doing WSDC, 4 rounds are prepared rounds. Those are rounds that you can win with a lot of practice. So that's one of the lessons that I learned. And I think another lesson, which might go against the fact that I'm saying it's a failure, is probably not to be too hard on myself. Because I think I was too hard on myself during the tournament, and that ruined the experience for me. Because like after round 7, we knew that we weren't going to break. So round 8 was just about equaling the national record, and like it was at that point. I don't think I took in the experience of being in like a tournament like that with so many people.
Now on to a more personal question. Where are you headed towards, like in your professional journey?
Honestly, this question like gave me some existential crisis, but I thought about it, and I think because right now I'm in my 3rd year in university, I know what I want to achieve, and I am in my undergraduate program. What I want to do honestly is I want to go to a master's or a PhD program, but I don't know if I'll be able to. Or if I'll be able to get a funded program. But that's my interest, maybe something to do with international development, education policy, education and conflict. So that's what I'm, politics of education. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, as a 10th grader, I'm just asking every senior as to what they're going to do and what they're doing. It's just insightful, especially because most debaters are young, and they're also looking forward to some kind of a career in those kind of humanities related fields, like for example law, for instance.
Like I had joined the law school in Nepal, and then I dropped out of that law school because I didn't like it, and it just became a gap year for me. So it was like directly after 12th I joined the law school. I didn't like it, I left it, so it was 1 year gap, and then I went to Georgetown. So right now my family still thinks that I want to do law after this. I'm not very certain if I do. It's not that I don't like it, but it's just that it doesn't give me the want to like suffer for it.
I mean, I think everyone thinks that debaters are supposed to be lawyers or something, because technically that's like there's like a huge similarity.
Yeah, I think that's the myth. Now I think of it, that's the
myth. And you're gonna break it someday, I hope. Okay. Thank you very much, Pragyan, for being with us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Azhar.
Give this video a thumbs up if you learned something new. Let us know your thoughts on this video in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and push that notification bell so that you don't miss it when our next video goes live. Bye.